So today we're going to look at setting up an Amazon EC2 instance, and specifically we're going to be looking at setting up a WordPress EC2 instance. So using Amazon's interactive dashboard, we can move around between Amazon's different products. So EC2 is a elastic compute container, and it's basically like a virtual private server, something that's very simple, something that doesn't organically scale, say like Lightsail. But it's cool because it gives us a pre-built, the ability to use pre-built templates, AMIs, out of the box. So we're going to be using EC2 to use a WordPress template to get our server up and running. So let's click into EC2, and I already have one instance set up and running, but we're going to be effectively duplicating it step by step and looking at all of the infrastructure and all of the settings to make it a high quality running server. So to create an instance, we start off by launching instance. So I just drill down into the EC2 section. I'm going to launch an instance. So here's the typical ones that you normally select. You can choose different operating systems, Amazon Linux. That sounds pretty awesome. But there's also a marketplace of user-driven pre-configured containers. So I have used Bitnami WordPress, and there we go. So we select him, and I had built a micro instance. So these are the sizes of your containers. So the name suggests that there's different sizes and different specs, different speeds and powers. And for Unix operating systems, I've always been fine with memory under a gigabyte. And I'll be choosing T2 Micro because my other instance is that speed and it runs lightning fast, which is great. And you can see that we also have different types of storage woven into it. So we've got we'll be choosing 1 gig of memory, which is a good chunk actually, and EBS, which I believe is elastic block storage. But you've also got other options like SSD, which should be faster in theory. So let's configure instance details. Nothing to change in here. That's a nice thing, is you can pretty much click next, next, next to get through everything. Add storage. So here it's pre-setting us with an SSD, which isn't what we want. We want magnetic to save money. 10 gigs fine. I believe we can scale this up later should we need to. Tags. No thanks, I don't really care about a tag. Security group. So this is cool. We can set up security group on the instance, which you can translate to a pre-configured firewall before it even hits your machine. So as it's going through Amazon's infrastructure, when it hits your machine, it's going to constrain who can hit it. So here this Bitnami instance has already got SSH, HTTP, and HTTPS described. So the next thing I do is go and look at my public IP address. I had recorded it, then I came back and realized I should probably take it out. as having your public IP address isn't great in a video. So I just went into Google and said, what is my public IP address? And I took that value and put it into the SSH rule area, and it's in CIDR notation. So it would effectively be your IP address /32, and the 32 is for the subnet, which basically means this and only this IP and nothing else. And that's fine for me when I'm connecting to my server. I only want it to be me who's connecting, and I want it to be locked down so not everyone else in the world can connect. This is going to be new security group or YouTube video security group. Yes, I want magnetic. Oh no, I think I went for this actually. Boot from general purpose SSD. Did I? What did I do? Whatever, I'm gonna go for this for cheapness for video. And key pairs. So key pair gives you the ability to not use a password or a text password when connecting to an instance or a server. And this is useful because A, it sucks having to use passwords to remember them, install them, and maintain them. And B, you can use a pretty hardcore encrypted handshake, I guess. So I've already got my key pair locally. And you'll be able to generate one yourself. But basically a key pair is a file that's stored locally, and you use that when you SSH to connect to your terminal instance that we're building. So it's like a key in your hand when you unlock the door. Thank you, expired license. So this is going to warp a new instance. So it says now launching. How we connect to it, which is cool. So let's click through to our instance and see it. So it's running, and I believe this is just a background monitoring check. We can see our IP. If we scroll down here, here's some more information about the instance. Let's make this a bit bigger. So some of the meaningful information here is that there's our public IP, that's how we connect to it. So let's copy that so we can connect it to it. There's also a connect button. Let's see what that does. Well, it gives you instructions as to how to connect to it. So yes, I'm going to go SSH, spawn of a new instance, and it's giving us some instructions here. And it's giving us a command line instruction as to how we connect to this using our key file. So let's just copy this. And the cool thing about Amazon, how they've built it, is everything is tokenized. So when you copy and paste examples, it's usually built around your instance. So all these values here are my specific instance. So I'll just copy that. And before we do that, actually, I need to find where my PEM, my certificate, or my for my handshake is, and I think it's called Mac. There we go, let's copy that. So let's copy this one first, paste that, and we're going to copy this on top. Swap out that. So it hasn't seen it before. Do you trust this? Yes. So we're into our new instance. Great. No love. Oh, there you go. It's just taking its time. It's spinning up. But yeah, that was fairly quick. There was a few clicks, and we've got a website. Obviously, just a straight up IP sucks. We'd want that to be presented with some sort of DNS settings in a domain name. This is quite vanilla, right? There's no content. We also have this Bitnami logo here, which I'm not too keen on. I'd like to get rid of that. And it makes me think that if I click this X button, it's going to hide it from me, and perhaps as a cookie, but it's going to still show for new users. So next steps. So if we already have blog content, we could put that in. So for blogs, we normally say yeah, so if we go wp-admin, there's our login. And then for username and password, so there are instructions accompanying the Bitnami setup. Bitnami WordPress AMI, so we can find them quickly. So that wasn't the one we used. We didn't use this PV one, we used this one, maybe. Bitnami WordPress page, user guide. Here we go. The default server administrator is user, so we're getting towards the information that we want, because we want to be able to log into WordPress quickly just to scope it out. Right, yeah, so there's one thing it tells us to do, is that we want to look at the system log when it sets up the Bitnami instance, because that generates the password in the log. And it's a secure log, so only you can find out what it is. So we need to go to the instance that we just created and the get system log. There we go. Cool black and white thing. We're looking for a ASCII box. Dum 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 dum. There we go. Let's copy that. And let's try. We saw that username is user, password is that. Remember me. Wrong. Did I just paste that correct? No, my buffer didn't take it. Copy. There we go. Cool, we're in. So some updates. What do we have? An updated version of WordPress is available. Yeah, let's go. Let's see if this works. Pow. Got kicked out. Let's try get back in again. Updates. Perhaps it's running behind the scenes. Database update is required. Yes, let's go. I mean, as this is the first time we've actually installed this thing, we can be quite cavalier and update on the fly and upgrade on the fly. However, if this was an actual instance running in production, you would probably want to do due diligence and snapshot it before you started playing around with it. So let's go back into updates. So you have the latest version of WordPress. Great, so we're up to date. That's going to include any security updates and any WordPress updates, just to harden it from the web. So we've got some plugins already installed. So they've given us some out-of-the-box plugins, which I may not want all of them. Like mail, I am never going to send a mail, so that can go away. Git versioning, I'm not going to be doing that either. And I'm just deleting these, but like I'm not sure whether deleting is going to remove it from the file system, but deleting sounds more heavy-handed than deactivating, and I don't want them on my system, to be honest. Jetpack, no thanks. Holly Dolly, why do people put these stupid things in here? Google Analytics, yeah, that's cool. WordPress migration, all-in-one SEO pack, no thanks. I've played around with the SEO packs and it seems that Yoast was pretty solid, so I'm going to stick with Yoast. And there is our working instance. So this should be somewhat hardened in the sense that only I can connect to it via SSH. Now, the other thing I want to do is get rid of this Bitnami logo. And I'm going to follow my own instructions from my website. So you can use these as accompanying instructions. I have removing Bitnami logo. So let's copy that into our terminal. I'm still connected. Control V. Oops, that was running. And then we want to kick Apache to take the effects into play, to take into effect the changes. And then, so what I did here, the first line was just to call the config and disable banner. And I'm going to restart Apache. So I'll bring our web server down briefly. And there we go, we don't have our logo anymore. Nice. So the perhaps the next thing I want to do is harden the machine. There's so many steps to that, and I won't go into those now. But you'd probably want to Google show Ubuntu version, or let's do show Linux version, or Linux. Good old Stack Exchange is always helpful. So uname -a is going to tell us what type of operating system we're running if we don't know. And you can see this is Ubuntu. So let's find out Ubuntu version. terminal, we can say lsb underscore release minus a, copy and paste central, so 14.4 Ubuntu, trusty Tahir, I believe that may be called. So next thing would look for is hardening Ubuntu 4.2.04. So we have a whole bunch of resources here on how to harden, and they're going to be in varying levels of difficulty or diligenceness, I guess. But I'd click through these and follow some of their instruction as to how to update the system. I guess while we're in here, one thing we can do really quickly is just to, and as this isn't a production server, we can just go ahead and do these things. So sudo apt-get update. So apt-get is the, I guess, the manager for managing packages, which are effectively the way that Linux distributes its software in a secure and trusted manner. And then so the update is just reaching out to the server and saying, hey, please rebuild all my indexes and my, what's new out there. You can see that it's grabbed a whole bunch. And if we do an upgrade, that's actually going to go and update a bunch of important software. So it's saying it's going to upgrade all these things. So just quickly eyeballing it for anything that looks important. libpython. Yeah, let's go for it. It's a fresh, clean machine. This is really good as well. Unattended upgrades, which effectively means you can give the security system and the packages being updated around the security system the ability to go and update themselves behind the scenes without your intervention. What else do we have in this list? Disable root account, that's a good idea. Swap partition. Disable IPv6. From my security training, I know that there are a bunch of flaws with IPv6. Sorry, security issues. So it's saying that there's a modified file locally. I'm going to play it safe and say keep your currently installed version, just because I don't know what has changed. It's not cool. It's just saying that a configuration file has changed, and maybe it should have been a vendor file that's changed. But for some reason, in my bitnami install, something has been updated that perhaps shouldn't have been. So I'll play it safe and say keep mine. I mean, there's always a chance of it not working, but I haven't seen any issues. So just while we're in here, I'm going to run through these instructions just for the security updates. Let's run that. To enable it, run the following command. Copy and paste. Automatically download and install stable updates, yes please. Oh, that's straightforward. And then, yeah, let's leave it at that. So as it sits, we have our new EC2 instance up and running. We've got no monitoring really set up on this. We've got no domain set up on this, it's just a straight up IP. But the next thing we would do is we would purchase or have a domain name and then route it to this public IP address. And we can route it from just the IPv4 address, or it could go and do the IPv6 as well. So that's it for now. Hope that was helpful. You should have an EC2 instance up and running. The next video we'll make is, or will be around the DNS creation and redirection.